The mellowed first night, I smelt the freshness of the lake and heard Colburn's name. Then I knew where we were. I kept thinking that it had all been so long ago, 10 years or more, almost another lifetime. The story begins with Oliver Marks, now 40 years old, reflecting on his 10 years in prison for a murder he claims to have committed. He sits with his wrists cuffed, visited by Joseph Colborne, a graying, almost 50-year-old detective who is about to retire. Colborne has visited Oliver every few weeks for a decade. He seeks the true story behind the events that led to Oliver's incarceration. Oliver, sensing Colborne's genuine desire for closure and his own impending freedom, agrees to tell his tale, with conditions. He will speak only after his release. Everything will be off the record, and his confession will not be an apology. Oliver's narrative transports the reader back to September 1997, his fourth and final year at Dellecher Classical Conservatory, a small, exclusive acting school devoted solely to Shakespeare. 7 talented and passionate students, Oliver, James, Richard, Meredith, Wren, Alexander, and Philippa, lived together in the antiquated stone building whimsically known as the castle. In their first major scene, gathered in the castle library, Alexander, a thin, wiry student with long dark curls and sharp canine teeth who often played villains, accurately predicted the casting for their fall production of Julius Caesar. Richard Sterling, a physically imposing and powerful actor destined for warlord roles, is cast as Caesar. James Farrow, Oliver's handsome and charming roommate, the most serious and talented actor among them, is cast as Brutus. Meredith Dardenne, a stunning and seductive actress, becomes Calpurnia, while Wren Sterling, Richard's waifish cousin and the group's ingenue, is Portia. Philippa Costa, tall, cool, and chameleonic, is relegated to a cross-dressing role, and Oliver, feeling like a perennial supporting actor, is cast as Octavius and Casca. The predictions sting Oliver, reinforcing his self-perception as merely a sidekick. That night, James and Oliver, sharing a room in the castle's tower, discuss their casting, with James hinting at playing a leading role in the spring, while Oliver, ever the loyal friend, teases James about playing the love interest. Auditions for the fall production revealed the intense talent and simmering rivalries within the group. Richard's powerful performance for Caesar leaves Oliver feeling inadequate. After the casting is confirmed, the 7 celebrate at the local bar, the Boar's Head. Later, by the lake, the mood turns playful but subtly tense when Alexander pushes Richard into the water. The group's diverse and often dysfunctional family backgrounds are revealed, contrasting with Richard and Wren's parents, who are thrilled by their children's theatrical pursuits. Richard expresses an ominous optimism for a good year. Gwendolyn Ashworth, their dramatic and demanding acting professor, introduces a new, ruthless teaching method pushing students to confront their deepest fears and vulnerabilities. Meredith is the first to undergo this public unmasking, confessing her fear of being taken seriously for her talent rather than her beauty. Later, in Frederick Teasdale's more academic class, a discussion about the tragic hero of Julius Caesar sparks a heated argument between Richard and James. James, provoked by Richard's dismissive remarks, criticizes Richard's many tragic flaws, hinting at a deeper animosity. The casting for the Halloween Macbeth scenes brings further shifts. James, as Macbeth, a departure from his usual hero roles, is cast as Macbeth, while Oliver is Banquo. This decision seems to displease Richard. During a combat class with Camillo, their movement coach, James accidentally cuts Oliver, revealing a cluster of dark bruises on James's arms. James confides in Oliver that Richard has been excessively rough during rehearsals, causing the marks. James refuses to report Richard, fearing it would only give him satisfaction and encourage further violence. The first Julius Caesar off-book rehearsal highlights the growing animosity. James and Alexander struggle with their lines, prompting Richard to launch a harsh public critique. Gwendolen sends Richard away, and Philippa later scolds Richard for his behavior. Richard, unusually, offers a perfunctory apology. Halloween night arrives, bringing the Macbeth performances to the lake. James, as Macbeth, delivers a chilling performance, his intensity unnerving. The three witches, Meredith, Wren, and Philippa, emerge eerily from the water. Richard's amplified voice as the apparitions is terrifying. Oliver, smeared with stage blood by James, portrays Banquo's ghost. The performance culminates in Alexander's dramatic entrance as Hecate. The post-performance party on the beach turns chaotic. Richard, isolated and heavily intoxicated, sits apart. Meredith, having broken up with Richard, flirts with Oliver, who feels a strange dread. During a drunken chicken fight, Richard violently shoves James underwater, seemingly trying to drown him. The others intervene, pulling Richard off. Meredith furiously confronts Richard, who then retreats to the castle. The group is deeply shaken. James asks Oliver to stay with him by the lake, marking an irreversible change in their dynamics. Later that night, Oliver wakes in Meredith's room, noticing bruises on her body, mirroring James's injuries. He finds a sick James in the bathroom, who reveals that Richard, in a fit of rage after his fight with Meredith, stormed off into the woods with a bottle of scotch. James, struggling with unspoken turmoil, tells Oliver he wants to hurt the whole world. Oliver's present-day conversation with Colborne takes them to the dock. Oliver confesses he and Meredith were hooking up that night. Colborne reveals Meredith had visited him later, seeking his help. The story returns to the morning of Richard's death. The 6 remaining friends discover Richard's lifeless body floating in the lake, but he is still breathing. Alexander, cold and pragmatic, suggests doing nothing, arguing that Richard's violence and destructive behavior made his death a benefit to them all. Meredith and Wren silently agree. James is horrified, insisting they must help him. Oliver, caught in the moral dilemma, gently persuades James to acquiesce. Richard dies. The group quickly constructs a false narrative. Richard was drunk, fell, and they found him dead. Oliver is sent into the icy water to confirm his death, a harrowing experience. Oliver is interrogated by Colborne, Dean Hollinsdale, and Gwendolen, meticulously adhering to the fabricated story. He claims to have found Richard already dead. Confined to Halsworth House, the remaining students are consumed by guilt and anxiety. Alexander, seeking solace, finds and shares brandy. James cryptically quotes Shakespeare about sleep, hinting at their shared culpability. Thanksgiving break arrives. Oliver's parents inform him they can no longer afford his Dellecher tuition due to his sister Caroline's expenses for a recovery center. Desperate to stay at Dellecher, Oliver resolves to find the money. James, equally distraught by his family, unexpectedly shows up at Oliver's home. They share a bed, and James, in a moment of vulnerability, confesses his desire to absolve himself and blame it on fate. Oliver later calls Meredith, canceling his planned visit, realizing her awareness of his closeness with James. Back at Dellecher, Oliver takes on a work-study job to cover his tuition, which includes cleaning the castle. He overhears Colborne and a new detective, Walton, discussing Richard's death, revealing that Richard drowned from choking on his own blood and that Colborne suspects foul play. Oliver finds a blood-stained scrap of Richard's shirt in the fireplace and hides it in a locker in the Undercroft, a secret labyrinth beneath the theater. Colborne later visits Oliver in the library, subtly questioning him about Richard and the nature of their Shakespearean addiction. Colborne hints at something rotten in the state of Denmark. Midterm speeches are scheduled. Wren, fragile and still affected by Richard's death, collapses during her monologue. James rushes to the infirmary, where he is questioned by police. Alexander, fearing further scrutiny, urges the group to maintain their facade of normalcy. At the Christmas mask, Oliver discovers Alexander snorting cocaine, a secret Alexander insists Oliver keep. The mask's Romeo and Juliet performance unfolds. Rena shines as Aeschylus, James as Romeo, and Oliver as Benvolio engage in a dialogue about love, during which Oliver is overwhelmed by an intense, savage jealousy toward James and Wren, realizing James is in love with her. The final act of Oliver's story to Colborne continues by the dock. Oliver reflects on Shakespeare's profound influence on their lives, calling it an addiction that made them feel everything with exaggerated intensity. He describes Richard as a constant, complex presence in his mind. He recounts the events of the King Lear production's opening night. James, cast as Edmund, delivers a powerful but unsettling performance. Oliver, as Edgar, feels James's internal turmoil during their scenes. After the performance, Oliver finds Meredith in the garden, tearful and wanting to confess something. He suspects she knows more about Richard's death. He agrees to talk later as the wind howls. Heading back inside, he finds James in the library, drunk and speaking frantically in character as Edmund, revealing dark and disturbing thoughts, including a fire from knocked-over candles. Oliver, alarmed, tries to calm James. Oliver then discovers James in the bathroom, his hand bleeding, the mirror shattered, and Meredith's mascara wand on the floor. James, still speaking erratically, confesses to Oliver that he killed Richard. He recounts how Richard, in a fit of uncontrollable rage after the party, had followed him to the boathouse, taunting him and insulting his and Oliver's supposed queerness. James, terrified and provoked, grabbed a boat hook and accidentally struck Richard, who then fell into the water. James believed Richard was dead and fled. Philippa found him, calm and collected, and helped him burn the bloodied boat hook and Richard's clothes, knowing the truth. Oliver is stunned by the revelation of Philippa's complicity and his own realization that he too had been manipulated. Despite his shock and grief, Oliver agrees to protect James, telling him they must act as if nothing is wrong.
The final performance of King Lear proceeds with a palpable tension. During the climactic duel, James, as Edmund, intentionally injures Oliver, breaking his nose. Colborne, Holinshed, and Gwendolen watch from the wings. James, in character, confesses his sins, expressing remorse. Frederick enters with Wren, dead in his arms, having succumbed to her emotional and physical fragility. The play ends in profound sorrow. Backstage, Colborne confronts James, asking if he is ready to tell the truth. Oliver, in a sudden, decisive act of self-sacrifice, steps forward and confesses to Richard's murder, taking the blame for James. He is arrested, and the other students watch in a mixture of despair, confusion, and anger. Oliver spends 2 days in interrogation, fabricating a story of jealous rage, claiming he killed Richard with the boat hook after finding him with Meredith. Colborne, following a map drawn by Oliver, finds the boat hook in the Undercroft locker, solidifying the false confession. Oliver refuses to call his family. Philippa and Alexander visit him, expressing their sadness and anger, but also their continued loyalty. Oliver compares his sacrifice to Romeo and Juliet, wanting to change the ending. James visits him, distraught, begging Oliver to let him confess, but Oliver refuses, determined to atone for what he perceives as his own tragic mistakes. James continues to visit him for 6 years, his pleas growing more desperate before he finally stops coming. Oliver is convicted of second-degree murder and obstruction of justice, sentenced to 10 years. In the epilogue, after telling his story to Colborne, Oliver is finally released from prison. He reconnects with Philippa, who reveals the devastating truth that James drowned himself 4 years prior, unable to bear the weight of his guilt. The guilt, she explained, had been killing him. Oliver is shattered by this news, realizing James's visits had ceased because he was succumbing to his torment. He also learns that Meredith, after the Lear party, had been violently assaulted by a drunken James in the bathroom before she finally went to Colborne and told him everything else, excluding the dock incident. Oliver confesses to Philippa that he was in love with James. Oliver later visits Meredith in New York. She confirms James's assault, revealing she knew about his and Oliver's mutual affection, pretending not to notice. She shows Oliver a key, a letter from James found in his car after his disappearance. The letter, a disjointed passage from Pericles, expresses his feelings of being lost and needing help. Searching online, Oliver confirms James's suicide by drowning in the San Juan Islands, his body never found. The story concludes with Oliver acknowledging the profound tragedy that engulfed their lives, a fate intertwined with Shakespeare's timeless narratives.